Okay, what if I told you that the perfect spiral of a seashell, the code inside your own DNA, and even the future of quantum computers, what if they all follow the exact same mathematical blueprint? It sounds wild, right? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty mind-blowing theory that says there might be a single luminous architecture, a hidden code connecting, well, maybe everything. So it all kicks off with this, something I'm sure you've seen before, the beautiful Nautilus shell. I mean, this thing is basically a living fossil. It's been perfecting its design for 500 million years. And its spiral, it's a total masterclass in what's called isometric growth. That just means it gets bigger and bigger without ever changing its fundamental shape. It's no wonder that for centuries, artists, mathematicians, you name it, have looked at this thing as a symbol of, like, natural perfection. And for pretty much just as long, we've all kind of thought we knew its secret, right? We've linked its perfect shape to one very, very famous mathematical idea. We thought, yep, case closed. But what if that whole popular story is just wrong? What if the real secret is something way deeper and honestly a whole lot more incredible?
All right, so to get to that deeper secret, we've got to bust a pretty big myth first. So let's start by taking apart the story you've almost certainly heard about this famous spiral.
Okay, and this right here just lays it all out, plain and simple. It's like a visual fact check. So look over on the far left. That's the classic myth, the golden ratio. Super famous, but you can see for yourself, it just doesn't fit the shell. The verdict is pretty clear, it's a pop culture fabrication. The actual biological reality, when you average it out over 80 different shells, is a ratio closer to 1.310. So yeah, that simple, elegant story we all learned, it's just not true.
So, okay, if it's not the golden ratio, then what in the world is going on? Well, the theory we're looking at says we've only been looking at half the picture. The real pattern, it turns out, isn't just about the form of the shell. It's a dual code, a conversation, really, between its physical structure and its bioelectrical energy. And this just shows that duality perfectly. On the left, you've got the form. Think of it as the physical scaffolding of the shell. Its growth follows a logarithmic spiral, something kind of like a Fibonacci sequence. But now look to the right. See those incredible lightning-like markings? That's the pattern. They're actually called Lichtenberg figures, and they're basically a fossilized record of the creature's bioelectrical charge. So you've got two completely different patterns, both written onto the very same shell.
So the big question is, how could these two totally different codes, one for physical growth, the other for electrical energy, how could they possibly be connected?
Well, that's where we get to the theoretical engine that supposedly brings them all together.
And here it is. This is called the Perez hourglass. Now, I know it looks a little complex, but just think of it as the master key we've been looking for. It's what's known as a self-similar fractal matrix, which is a fancy way of saying it's a pattern that repeats itself at different scales. And what it does is it unifies a bunch of famous mathematical patterns you might have heard of, like Pascal's triangle and the Fibonacci sequence. And it pulls in those Lichtenberg patterns we just saw on the shell. It brings them all together into one single, perfectly symmetrical structure. And this hourglass, is the foundation for what the researchers are calling luminous architecture. And this is the really crucial part. They're not talking about a metaphor here. This isn't just a pretty idea. It's being proposed as a mathematical law, an exact radiant framework that underpins the physical world, our own genetics, and maybe even the quantum universe itself.
So how does this thing actually work?
Well, you can break it down into three main parts. Up top, you've got the northern hemisphere, and that's supposed to govern matter. Right in the middle, you see that pinched part? That's the central waist. It's like a mathematical bottleneck. And then down at the bottom, you have the southern hemisphere, which is a perfect mirror image representing antimatter. And this is where the symmetry gets really cool. The northern hemisphere, the matter part, is all about addition. It's how you get patterns like Pascal's triangle. But the southern hemisphere is its perfect opposite. It's governed by subtraction, specifically recursive subtraction. It ends up creating something like a negative Fibonacci sequence, stretching out into the negative numbers with this perfect, beautiful symmetry right around zero. Okay, but here's the magic trick. This is where this really abstract mathematical idea connects right back to the real physical world, starting with our good friend, the Nautilus shell. All right, get ready, because this is the big aha moment. If you just count the numbers inside each row of that antimatter hemisphere, not the ones on the border, just the ones inside, a sequence just pops right out. 1, 2, 5, 10, 21, 42, and so on. Does that look familiar? It should. That is the exact
Lichtenberg sequence that's been known about for over 250 years. The implication here is just stunning. It suggests that those energy patterns literally burned into the shell are a direct, physical printout of this hidden, fractal math.
And look, this isn't just some happy accident, some convenient coincidence. The math behind this hourglass structure is incredibly strong. In fact, its core properties have been proven to be, for all intents and purposes, unbreakable.
And its perfection is basically guaranteed by two key theorems. First, there's Theorem 7, topological symmetry. All that means is that if you were to fold the whole structure in half, every single number lines up with another one perfectly, and there are absolutely zero collisions or overlaps. I mean, they've tested this out to 2.5 billion pairs. And then there's Theorem 8, global coherence, which shows this perfect balance between the explosive growth happening in the matter half and the decay happening in the antimatter half.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. If this code can describe a 500-million-year-old shell with this insane level of mathematical perfection, what else does it describe? And the answer this theory gives? Well, it's pretty staggering.
So we're going to jump from an ancient seashell straight into our own genetic code. The idea here is that the very same math, the same luminous architecture, might be governing how our DNA works. Think of it like this. The 64 possible DNA codons, that's your input. The hourglass architecture acts as the compression engine. And the output? It gets perfectly squeezed down into exactly 21 biological results. That's the 20 amino acids we need to build proteins, plus a stop signal. The numbers they line up.
And now for one final giant leap. We're going from ancient biology to the bleeding edge of technology. The concept is called perfect associative memory, or PAM for short. The idea is to basically take this hourglass and turn it into a computing architecture. You'd use that unbreakable collision-free symmetry we talked about as a kind of fractal shield to protect super fragile quantum information from just falling apart.
And this chart, this is basically the mic drop. It shows just how radical this could be. Compare it to the memory systems we have now, even the ones in modern transformer AI. The proposed PHIM architecture is just in a whole different league. Let's look at capacity. Current systems, they have limits. PHIM, theoretically, infinite. What about retrieval speed? You know how things get slower the more data you have? With PHIM, it's supposedly instantaneous. We're talking about a complete reimagining of what information storage and retrieval could even mean. And so, here we are, at the unified theory. This brings it all together so well. The idea that the exact same fractal laws that helped a sea creature survive for millions of years also seem to be the ones that compress our genetic code and might just provide the unbreakable shield we need for quantum computers. It's a single blueprint that seems to connect the ancient ocean, the living cell, and the quantum future. When you boil it all down, it comes back to this central equation. You take these fundamental patterns like Fibonacci and Lichtenberg, you combine them, and out of that, you get infinite complexity. It really makes you think of what the astronomer Johannes Kepler said way back in the day. Where there is matter, there is geometry. So the ultimate takeaway here is pretty profound. It's the idea that the architecture of our universe isn't just random chaos, that maybe, just maybe, it's luminous, it's exact, and it's written in a mathematical language that we're only just now beginning to learn how to read. And that, of course, leaves us with one final, exciting question. What are we going to find next?